Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Louis Sussman, Vice Chairman of the club, and our chairman sends his sincere regrets. He's not here. We're hoping, as the President of the Federal Reserve, he's doing good things for us wherever he is. Want to welcome everyone to this special meeting of the Economic Club of Chicago. Now it's my pleasure to introduce those seated at the head table. Beginning on my far right, Allison Chung, President of TeamWorks. Michael C. Kraus, Partner and Chief Marketing Officer, Diamond Cluster International. Cheryl Mayberry McKissick, Chairman and CEO of Nina Enterprises. Brian K. Mulrooney, President, Informational Solutions, Midwest Region, EDS. Michael P. Krasny, Chairman Emeritus, CDW Computer Centers, Inc. Robert C. McEwen, Executive Vice President, Senior Partner and General Manager of Flashman Hillard, Inc. Leland Hutchinson, Partner, Winston Strong. Don Stewart, President and CEO of the Chicago Community Trust. Mark Tebe, Founder, Lantee Corporation. James S. Crown, General Partner, Henry Crown and Company. And the Chairman of After School Matters, but is really the First Lady of Chicago, Maggie Daly. Miles D. White, Chairman and CEO of Abbott Laboratories and a Director of the club. And Robert W. Galvin, Chairman Emeritus, Motorola. Beginning on my far left, Edward Woodward Harner, Jr., Executive Vice President of the Art Institute of Chicago. Robert Jordan, President, Interim CEO, Inc. Rudy Puryear, President and CEO of Lantee Corporation. Jane J. Thompson, Global Director, Consumer Strategy Practice of Deloitte Consulting and a Director of the Economic Club. Mark L. Gordon, Managing Partner of Gordon and Lickerson, and also a Director of the club. Andrew, I've also been asked to say Filiposki, who is Chairman and CEO of Divine, Inc. Robert D. Blackwell, President and CEO of Blackwell Consulting Services. Sandra P. Guthman, President and CEO of Polk Brothers Foundation. King W. Harris, Chairman of Harris Holdings. Michael W. Farrell, Chairman and CEO of Click Commerce. Lester B. Knight, Founding Partner, Roundtable Healthcare Partners. Alan B. Muchin, Chairman of Cat Muchin, Zavitz and Rosemond. And John W. Rogers, Jr., Chairman and CEO of Ariel Capital, Ariel Mutual Funds, and also a Director of the club. Let's give them all a warm round of applause. Now it is my great pleasure and an honor to introduce one of the great success stories of American technology and business. A whiz kid who has truly become one of the great leaders of American industry. A man who at the age of 37 is already an elder statesman of the computer industry. 37. We are exceedingly happy, fortunate, and give you the warmest possible welcome. I introduce you to Michael Dell.
You know, we do have a different business model, and it's really helped us. I want to kind of make some introductory comments in here and then entertain your questions. So if you got any questions you're contemplating, get them ready, because that most of the time is going to be for that kind of interaction. This last year was one of the more challenging years in the computer industry. It was the first year in about 16 years that demand for computer systems actually fell year over year. It was down 5% on a worldwide basis. We managed to increase our unit shipments by 15% while maintaining the #1 position in the market. So we captured considerable market share. And I think that continues a trend that's been going on for some time, where the the efficiencies of our direct relationship with the customer have really allowed us to continue to grow and expand, even in a market that's consolidating. And you hear a lot about industry consolidation. There are competitors that are outsourcing their manufacturing, they're combining together or trying to combine together, they're exiting markets, and we're sort of at a new stage of industry consolidation, and customers are able to get pretty incredible value from the computer systems industry, and I think it's going to continue to get more and more efficient. We've had a fundamentally different business model. It's been rooted in this direct relationship with the customer that not only emphasizes a great experience, but also a great value. One of the big areas of focus for us over the last several years has been the enterprise market. The server and storage markets have been a major part of our growth. In 1995, when we first entered the server market, we were number 10 in the United States, and generally thought of as the underdog in the server market. We're now number 1 in the United States server market and number 2 worldwide. And more importantly, about 9 out of 10 servers sold in the world are now based on industry standard architectures. Those hardware architectures that use microprocessors from companies like Intel and operating systems like Windows and Linux continue to take over an increasing part of the computing spectrum, and Dell is really at the heart of this kind of industry standards creation and driving those to be volume markets. We spend about $500 million a year in R&D, and about half of that goes into enterprise products. And last week we announced kind of a next generation of high density server products, where we're taking servers, instead of putting 2 processors in a box, stacking them up, we have server blades, and we're able to increase the density by about 6 or 8 times what was previously available. So for those of you who are into the technology, in a full-size rack in your data center, you can get about 504 processors. What previously would have taken up perhaps an entire data center, are now getting crammed down into much smaller spaces, and obviously a lot of cost and a lot of heat taken out of that. Storage is another big part of our growth. We're shipping about 200 terabytes of storage per day now, and the storage market is a rapidly expanding part of our market as more and more people are consolidating storage that previously existed out there on thousands of PCs and hundreds of servers in their networks. And services is another big part of our growth. We have about 7,000 people in our services business. We're growing particularly in the installation, the deployment, the professional consulting services that go along with installing the more complex products. One of the other big opportunities for us is the global marketplace. In the United States, we have about a 44% market share, greater than our number 2, 3, and 4 competitors all combined together, and we're the only one that's growing. But outside the United States, in 57% of the world's market, we only have 6% market share. So we have a lot of opportunity to grow there in places like China, India, Japan, Brazil. And we're finding that while our business model is different, that it works equally well in these new markets. It takes us a while to get established, but we're seeing good growth in those markets, and we don't see any reason why customers aren't attracted to the economic concept. What we more broadly see for our market is that just about all areas of the communications and certainly parts of the communications and computing sector are subject to this kind of trend of industry standards creation. And the business model, the distribution, logistics efficiencies that we've been able to apply, I think are pretty broadly applicable to a number of new areas. So those are some of the things that we're focused on expanding into, and doing so in a profitable way, even in a period where it's pretty rough in our industry. We're trying to perform reasonably well. With that, I'd be happy to entertain questions anyone has. Yes.
If the name of the game in your industry is to be the low-cost producer, which it clearly is, and you have no stores which are overhead, and no authorized resellers who have to mark your product up, and no finished goods inventory for which you have to carry working capital and finance it either internally or externally, A, how does somebody catch you? Or B, where are you vulnerable that if you were 21 and starting all over again, or 17 back in your dorm room, there's the place where I could go after it, just as you once saw that the model, the paradigm that was in play had a flaw in it. Where does somebody go get you?
Well, you know, the easiest place to get us is from any one of the 180 million telephones in the United States. You just pick up the phone. That's where I thought you were going with this. We spend a lot of time living in fear in our business. And we live in fear because there's always something new going on, whether it's in technology or in ways of interacting with customers. When the internet came along, we thought that was one way that we might be left out in this sort of evolution of the way customers were buying. Well, it turns out that we were the first computer company to really have a website. Small computer systems company. We were the first. We started our online presence a year before Amazon was founded. And we were selling products online, we were supporting customers online, and we'll do close to $20 billion of sales online this year. So yeah, we try to reduce friction. We try to take all that cost out. Just describing kind of how our system works. I mean, yesterday we sold about 80,000 computers. The signals for those orders go into our factory, and they go to our suppliers and our suppliers, and they deliver materials based on exactly what we just sold every 2 hours. Okay? So, yeah, we have no raw materials except for those that are on the line to be going into products. We have no finished goods. If there is a better way to do this, hopefully we'll come up with it before somebody else will. Because there will always be new and better ways of doing things. We have a fundamental philosophy at our company that we can improve everything that we're doing.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your deal with EMC to sell their storage equipment. Historically, you guys had focused pretty intently on delivering open standards type systems. And the deal with EMC seems to stand in contrast to that in some way, shape, or form, given at least their notorious reputation for not being completely open. I was wondering if you could address that and how your attitude toward that changed over time and sort of what your thought process is, both now and going forward.
Sure. What we see in storage, if you look at the storage market, there are really three basic markets. There's the direct attached storage, and the network attached storage, and the storage area network. And each one of those is kind of at a different stage of commoditization, with the SAN being the least commoditized. And that's an area where we would tend to have alliances and partnerships. In case of EMC, they have a technology that's great technology. Our customers want that technology, they like it. They like doing business with Dell. We're taking some of our logistics and distribution advantage and hopefully over time manufacturing advantage, and trying to drive the cost of this down to make it more affordable. And as standards get created, we're working on next generation SAN technology. That could be EMC's technology driven down in cost. It could be things like iSCSI. So we're still believing that just as the direct attached storage and the NAS has started to commoditize, that SANs will as well. But you've got to start somewhere, and at the high end, they've got a great product today, and the partnership is bearing a lot of fruit with new customers that we're both finding that we weren't able to serve before.
We have a question at the speakers table.
Dell has become a huge, successful company. How do you keep your entrepreneurial spirit alive?
Thank you. Well, we have a pretty self-critical culture inside the company. We like to complain a lot, and we're never very happy. We have kind of a saying at Dell is called Pleased But Never Satisfied. And, you know, that's when things are going well. If they're not going well, we have another saying. I won't go into that right now. But inside the business, we don't try to centrally control everything. So as we create new businesses, we have teams that are totally focused on a unique part of the market, a unique customer, and they're really empowered to go come up with new ideas. An example that I just found out about a couple days ago by accident is our team tested a new service. Our consumer business came up with a new service for installation, where we'll come out to your house for $109, we'll install your PC. And they took a queue, which is a group of people on the phone. They said, okay, we're going to train everyone on this service of installation, and we're going to see how this goes for a week. And if it works, then we're going to roll it out to the entire sales force. And so in a span of about 2.5 weeks, we introduced a completely new product to all of our consumers in the United States that is not only giving us new customers, but opening up new opportunity. And so it's little tests like that, and I literally found out about this by accident. You know, we don't try to control these things from the center. We have sort of philosophies and ideas about how we serve customers and markets we want to go after. And you know, our people, you know, we've got a very results-oriented culture, and there's also good, healthy competition in our industry. So we thrive on that. Yeah.
Good afternoon. Two questions. First one is, what do you see the future for Linux? And if it continues to go well for Linux, will that hurt Sun more or Microsoft more? And my other question is do you have any perspective on the Microsoft judgment, potential judgment?
Okay, well, Linux is going, I would say, quite well, given where it is in its life. You know, you might think of Linux as in a gestation cycle of development that is going to take, you know, 5 to 7 years before it reaches its perhaps full potential. But we're seeing very good demand for Linux on servers, and we're seeing selected, you know, workstation customers. You know, for example, you might be interested to know that at Cisco, when people do engineering, they do it on Linux workstations, not Sun workstations. And at Intel, they do the same. I think it appears to be pulling more from Unix than from Windows. I mean, if you take the top 25 instructions for Unix and Linux and you line them up, they're basically the same except for 2 or 3, and they're minor differences. So for all intents and purposes, as a programmer, Unix and Linux look like the same thing. So it's very easy to convert. In terms of, you know, we don't really care, to tell you the truth. I mean, if it takes from Unix, you know, that's obviously better for us than if it takes from Windows. But if it takes from Windows, that's okay for us too, because, you know, we just want to make sure it's our product. So,
Want to comment on the Microsoft or not?
On the Microsoft case, boy, there's a lot of experts on that. I mean, I don't know that I'm the best expert to comment on that one.
Pass.
Yeah, hi, Michael. Thanks for being here. What I'm curious about, how do you view your competitive position vis-a-vis IBM, Compaq, Hewlett-Packard, especially in light of the Hewlett-Packard Compaq deal that's going on? And then maybe secondly, what's the game plan for continuing your market share gains against your competition?
Okay, the question is, how do we feel about our competitive position against our major competitors, particularly in light of the Compaq HP merger, and what's our game plan? Actually, let me kind of turn this around. I have a question for all of you. Is there anyone out there that's an HP or Compaq customer who thinks this merger is good for them? And if so, why? I think at the end of the day, if we look at our business model and the cost structure that we have, you know, it's not clear to us that combining these companies together is really going to challenge the trajectory that Dell is on in terms of increasing market share. In one sense, by by combining together, you can take cost out. You know what they call synergy? That's code word for we're going to fire 35,000 people. I mean, it's very hard to make large mergers work. If you look at our industry, they haven't gone all that well. And I think they're going to have a challenge lining up the architectures. And certainly if we look at the last year, Dell gained considerable market share, particularly in the period after the combination was announced, from the confusion that exists from customers, employees, shareholders, et cetera. So I feel quite comfortable with our competitive position, the focus that we have as a business, the opportunities that we have, and we're prepared to compete, whether it's combined or separate or however they may configure themselves.
Question about public policy and the technology industry. For many years, the technology industry really stayed apart from Washington and a lot of the public policy issues. More recently, getting more involved. I know you said on one of the president's councils. What are the key areas you feel? Do you feel that the technology industry is getting more involved, number one? Number two, what areas do you feel it should be speaking out upon? One example would be we had Governor Ridge here this morning at another hotel and inviting the industry to speak about how technology and security can come together, government, public-private partnerships. So maybe you could just comment on the public policy issues relating to the technology industry.
I think we have to, as companies in the technology industry, engage with our government, and there's a lot to be done there. I am the chairman of the Cspp, which is a group of computer systems companies that goes to Washington twice a year, along with Motorola and IBM and a number of other companies, and we have several key issues: broadband policy, digital rights management, privacy, security, export controls. We have to be engaged in these issues, and not only understand the concerns of our government, but also do some education in terms of what the requirements of our industry are and how our industry can be enabled to continue to grow and continue to be an engine of productivity for companies and citizens, and not be disadvantaged also relative to other competitors that we may have around the world. So I think there's a lot to be done there. I know in my conversations with Governor Ridge, one of the challenges that he has is, how do you connect all these disparate systems together? You can have, great systems in individual branches of law enforcement, but, if somebody gets pulled over for speeding, and they get stopped, you don't necessarily know that that's the same guy that was denied a visa to come to the country and snuck in through Canada and blew up a bus. Because those are 3 or 4 different systems. Now, those are really less IT issues and more, kind of how does the government work issues. And, I don't have a solution to those problems. Thank you very much. But from an IT standpoint, we can certainly provide the tools and some of the technology that helps us get there.
Is Dell doing anything in the areas of maybe a combination device of a PDA, cell phone, pager, any of the more personal devices, or maybe the new tablet PCs you're hearing about?
We have it's a great question. We have a pretty simple test for markets that we go into. And we like markets that are large, where there's profit, and where there are clear industry standards. And when those 3 conditions don't exist, we tend to kind of wait. And the reason we do that is we find that it's just very hard to make a success there. In the PDA market, right now you have a lot of really interesting products. You have, pocket PCs, you have Palms, you have Palms with phones, you have RIM Blackberries, Blackberries with phones, you have Symbian devices, you have Microsoft Stinger phones, there's all sorts of stuff. But nobody's really quite sure which of those is going to be a volume product. They sit in between these incredibly large markets, the PC and the cellular telephone. And if those 3 conditions present themselves, then I think you'd see Dell enter the market. The tablet is another thing where it's technically quite easy. So the research, the development, the creation of tablets, that's very easy. Finding a lot of customers who want to buy them and making it profitable, that's a bit trickier. And we have kind of a philosophy at our company about profits.
We're going to take two more questions. Over here on the right.
Hi, Michael. Ted Backrack. Your core competency has been really, as I see it, business processes in the Dell direct model. Do you ever foresee a day in the future where perhaps there are higher returns on capital applying that direct model in business processes to other industries rather than improving the computer business? And if so, would you ever consider expanding your business model into unrelated products?
Well, the topic has come up before. We've been pretty disciplined about staying in the computer area because there's a lot of opportunity there left for us. We have started a little bit in data networking, in LAN switching. Those of you familiar with Ethernet switches, layer 2 switches, you might know that Dell entered the market. In fact, we already have 5% market share after only 5 months in part of the market. Because our prices are about 2.5 to 3.5 times less than one of those other companies that makes a lot of networking switches. So we've been able to apply the same model to other areas, but you know, the computer and data communications market and services related, that's about a $1 trillion industry, and that ought to keep us busy for a while.
Michael, I just had a question. What do you consider to be your most, or some of your most significant mistakes, and what have you learned from them?
We made a lot of mistakes. We corrected them very quickly, and you know, fortunately, they were at when Dell wasn't at a huge size, so they weren't catastrophic. I mean, in 1989, we created something called Dell Unix, which hopefully none of you've ever heard of. But that was a complete total failure, and you know, we learned a lot about the importance of broad industry standards and how that got formed. We went into the retail market, into mass merchandisers for a little while in the early 90s. You know, that was a big mistake. We grew too fast also in the early 90s, and our infrastructure kind of outstripped our organization. You know, those were probably some of the biggest mistakes that we made.
Thank you.
Let's thank Michael Dell for a great presentation.
Seeing Michael Dell is a real inspiration, and he's a really great role model, and it was a real treat to see him.
It's really important to do what you do and do it really well, and try to really own that category. And I think Dell is probably, and Michael certainly is an example of how they have done that and done it well for a long period of time, and aren't many naysayers these days about Dell.
He took an industry and he turned it on its ear. He went direct to consumers, and all of us in business today are looking for a way to just get ahead, and he's shown us the way to here today, I think.
I think it was very enlightening and a wonderful program. Michael Dell is obviously not only a luminary but a genius in our business, so it's very nice to have the chance to hear him speak and answer some questions.
It's not every day you get to see the modern day Henry Ford. I think Michael Dell has done for computers what Henry Ford has done for automobiles, and the customization and standardization that he's brought to this industry are remarkable.